For some odd reason, whenever I'm reviewing something like this, I feel like I have to qualify my opinions. I read all the Harry Potter books and watched all the Harry Potter films. It has been a while since I've visited any of that material, but I just want to let you know that I did that. I've watched the first 2 Fantastic Beasts films, and I didn't love them. Now, funny enough, when I first watched Crimes of Grindelwald, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit, and then I watched it again because I was like, oh, it's so good, I should watch it a second time. I got invited to another screening, and then I was like, huh, not so much. I don't. Going into this, naturally, I was cautiously optimistic. I wasn't expecting to love it, and I don't. It's not fantastic, and I'm sure that joke's gonna be played to death.
There's nothing wrong with that. Trippy, yeah, we all lose track. I wouldn't mind it.
It's hard to put my finger on why I didn't love this movie. It's just that at the end of it, I was like, that's all right. I didn't hate it. It's kind of like what people are saying about Morbius. It's like, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It exists. It's a existing beasts. The pacing is a little bit off for it being called, The Secrets of Dumbledore. I was like, I thought we were gonna get more Dumbledore involved. I mean, he's there in the movie. He's not the crux of the adventure. It's like he kind of pushes things and he certainly has an influence, but you're probably watching this to determine 2 things. How did Jaby feel, and should I go watch it? How did Jaby feel? I was a little bit underwhelmed. Even going in cautiously optimistic, I'm like, okay, well, yeah. The 3rd act happened, and everything that I was excited about going into this movie, when I watched it, I was like, oh, I saw all this in the trailer. There wasn't much more. The stuff that got me excited was like some of the wand battles and whatnot. I'm like, oh, cool, like we're gonna have some proper wand action. I had a similar experience with the final Harry Potter film, actually. You see this epic battle happening between Harry Potter and Voldemort, and then you get to the movie and you're like, oh, like they showed us the whole battle in the trailer. Them flying around and going, oh, I'm gonna kill you. Magic, Patronus, smelly armpits. My point is that we saw most of that battle that happens in the movie inside the trailer, and the same thing kind of happened here. I mean, granted, there was a bit more, but I was just expecting, like, I don't know. There's a lot of buildup towards nothing is what this kind of feels like, because at a certain point you already know what's gonna happen. Here's the odd thing about the film. It's going along and I'm just like, all right, I don't know why anything. It's just, okay. I'm just gonna assume that this is all gonna make sense in a minute. I don't know why this person's going here. I don't know how they're getting away. I don't know how they're able to go here. Magic. And then what happens is around an hour and a half into the movie or so, you start to see where this is going, and then it becomes extremely predictable. And I'm like, well, there's no goddamn way any of that. No. Once you hit a certain mark in the movie, you can sort of see where it's going, and if you are a savvy viewer, which I feel like by this point most of us are, you're gonna know where it's headed, and you're gonna know what the plot twists are. You're gonna know what the secrets are. It's not a secret. You had to have seen this coming a mile away. It's not a secret. It's very obvious. It should be called The Obvious of Dumbledore. The Obvious Moves of Dumbledore. I feel like going into a little bit of spoilers right now, even though this is a non-spoiler review. It's not gonna be full-on spoilers, but like if you don't want any spoilers at all, thanks for hanging out, and deuces to you. Just go ahead and leave and come back to this particular section, which you won't, I know, but come back to this particular section of the video so you can hear what I have to say about the...
Don't have to be an acrobat, I wouldn't mind it.
Kind of a spoiler, but not really. It's been a minute since I've watched, obviously it's been a minute since I've watched Crimes of Grindelwald, but at the end of it, there's this whole thing with the magic thing of why Dumbledore can't fight Grindelwald. I think it came at the end of the movie, right? It's explored in this movie, and I don't get it. Like, they explain it, right? There's 2 explanations, bookend explanations, shall we say. The first one I got, because there's just it basically is just reiterating, but we get to see it play out a little bit more, a visual explanation, if you will, and you're like, oh, and that never comes around. It just doesn't. Like, the thing they explain doesn't ever come up. It's almost like a Chekhov's gun, because you're expecting something to pay off based on this setup, but that never actually comes to fruition. There's no danger. And I think maybe that's the thing about this movie that sort of bothers me a lot, is that I never really felt a sense of urgency or danger while watching the film. It's like, I just assume this is all gonna work out. Now, coming back to the whole like magical element of why Dumbledore and Grindelwald can't fight each other. So it's brought up again, let's just say that, okay? It's brought up again, and when it is, I was really underwhelmed. That's the easiest way to put it, without spoiling anything. I was just like, okay, all right. Why not? Shit. It's about as good as the Eagles showing up to rescue Frodo. Like, now I know there's a book explanation for that in Lord of the Rings, but when you're watching the movies, you're like, what?
All my life, it's been up and down, but always comes back to you.
I would say that I have a few favorite moments in this film that are noteworthy, and the person who brought most of those favorite moments is Jacob Kowalski. Now, I feel like he's probably been the comic relief throughout the movies thus far, and so naturally he'd be a bright element in this movie that a lot of people come away enjoying and appreciating. Newt Scamander, played by Eddie Redmayne, he does he does his thing. Eddie Redmayne does his thing. I don't know that I enjoyed his performance more in this one than in previous ones, but there is some physical comedy that happens in this movie. Like this, that looks ridiculous, I know, but if you watch the movie, you'll know exactly where that fits in. It's pretty funny. I enjoyed that. There are moments that, induce a chuckle, induce a laugh, induce a hearty guffaw, if you will. Jacob Kowalski is responsible for a lot of that, and then there's some physical comedic moments with Eddie Redmayne. Those aspects were fun, and I enjoyed that.
You don't know me the way that I know you.
So Mads Mikkelsen is the new bad guy who replaces Johnny Depp. And there's a built-in excuse as to why you can have Mads Mikkelsen and not Johnny Depp. And the movie doesn't even bother to address it at all. You just see him and, there, boom. They recap the whole thing with Dumbledore's magic with Grindelwald, but they don't recap why Grindelwald's got a new face. So how is Mads Mikkelsen as the villain of this movie? He's cool. He's about as good as he is any other time, I guess. Like, it's about as good as he was in Doctor Strange. And I don't know what to say. He's there like anybody else. I don't know if I can necessarily fault him. It's the material. He had what he had to work with. I feel like the film is trying to do this sort of parallel with Trump a little bit. The bad leader who's persuading the people in the wrong direction, and everybody's just a sheep who's persuaded by this guy, this villainous guy. I don't know. I look at that dude, I'm like, he looks like a bad guy to me. I wouldn't vote for that dude just on principle alone. Like, look at you. You just look like a bad guy. To be fair, Johnny Depp looked like a bad guy as well. I think that despite the controversy between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I would have liked to have had Johnny Depp back. I think that, his controversy probably would have just added to the treachery of Grindelwald, Because you like him, but he did that thing. Oh no, that just adds to it, no? Am I the only one that thinks that? Stones were cast from both sides on that Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, so I feel like Johnny Depp should have gotten his role back. Warner Brothers wants to distance itself from all the controversy. I get it, I understand, but I personally would have rather had Johnny Depp there. Yeah, at the end of it, I'm like, okay, yeah, Mads Mikkelsen, cool. While we're talking about casting, a very, very important part of this film takes place in Asia. There aren't a lot of Asians in the movie. It's just interesting. Thought I'd point that out. I think that the one Asian that is prominent in this film doesn't even have lines, if I recall correctly. Not a lot of Asians for this very important aspect of the movie taking place in Asia. It's kind of weird. Like Uncharted took place, the last leg of Uncharted took place in the Philippines. Not a lot of Filipinos in the movie. Not a lot of Asians at all. Just white people in Asia and don't feature any Asians. It's weird. It's fucking weird, but I mean, it's an exotic location without the exotic people.
Please tell me, now what am I supposed to do?
Sometimes when you're watching a movie as it's going along, you may not be feeling it, you're not as invested in the adventure, but sometimes a movie that's all right can be saved by an incredible third act. Like, you get to the last 20, 30 minutes and you're like, whoa. I was not sure along the way, but man, that third act, oh man, it saved oh God, it's worth it to go back just for those last 30 minutes of that movie, because whew, when they almost, that didn't happen here. No, not at all, not even a little bit. Because there's not a lot of aggressive action, shall we say, even aggressive magic. It's just there are things that happen that are magical. There are, cool elements throughout the film that are ooh, it's whimsical and neat. There's never an epic scene where you're that scene right there, that's the scene I would go back just to watch this movie for. The Matrix back in 1999, if nothing else, you would go back to watch that film just for that bullet time shot, right? Or with, not Shang-Chi. Well, Shang-Chi, I guess that's a fine enough example. There are some epic fight scenes in Shang-Chi. The bus fight scene, there you go. The bus fight scene in Shang-Chi, I'd go back just to watch that scene again, right? In Avengers Endgame, the last war sequence, that, you go back just, it's all worth it for that war sequence at the end because it's so cool and epic. There are things like that in these epic movies where you're there's that one scene that kind of makes it worth it. That just, if nothing else, there's that one epic scene. There's nothing like that here. There's not one scene where I'm like, yo, that was dope. And I was sort of expecting that, at least with the finale in this movie, the last 30 minutes or so. I was like, this is gonna be so epic based on the trailers and what have you. And then, like I said earlier, what you saw in the trailers is what you got in the movie. It's nothing a lot more than that. It doesn't really go beyond that. It's not really breaking new ground. Ultimately, this culminates in me asking, is this film worth watching? Is it, like, can I recommend this movie? If you're a devout Harry Potter / Fantastic Beasts fan, you've probably watched it already before even watching this video. And if you're waiting, you know, for multiple reviews to indicate to you whether or not it's worth your time or your money, I guess so. Like, I haven't said a lot of positive in this review. What I can say is, like, if you're doing nothing else and you just want to take like your family to go watch something, it's pretty family friendly. It's mostly innocuous, nothing too saucy in there. Even the stuff that you would think is controversial in this movie, it's not really controversial. They keep it pretty innocent. No, they don't really cross any boundaries here. You know, not like that sex scene in Eternals, you know what I'm saying? Nothing like that. Nothing. Not even a kiss as far as I remember, like nothing. If you need something to watch with your family, I would say it's worth watching. If you need something to watch with your kids and you're progressive, then I feel like it's fine. I feel like most people are fine with, if you know what I'm driving at, I feel like most people are fine with this kind of material now. I feel like it's fine to take your family to watch if you just need something to like entertain them for a couple of hours. If you want a date, this is a good movie to take a date to, because assuming you feel the same way I do, you should have lots to talk about. It's a lot easier to talk about a movie that you don't like than a movie that you like. I feel like it's easier to bitch. But as a Harry Potter fan, I'm like, be fantastic.